Globespan is a Guyanese dialogue moving towards the realization of one nation in one Guyana. It's a platform that offers an all-inclusive discussion with the pros, the cons, the ones that have taken a side, and the ones that stand in the middle. Globespan believes agreeing and disagreeing are part of the nation building. Globespan believes that every Guyanese voice is part of the nation building. As we span the globe for voices from the diaspora and those living home, we stand on our commitment that we are all Guyanese working towards one nation in one Guyana. This land is our land now. As the world turns on its axis, bringing changes, we as Guyanese must adapt to those changes for a better Guyana for all. Globespan stands on its axis with its belief that one nation, one Guyana, one destiny must include voices from all corners of Guyana.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to one of Globespan weekly program on the Wednesday. Our new timing, based on the fact that we have moved away from daylight saving times, is now starting at 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. Guyana time. Please, ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and press the subscribe button so that you get notification on YouTube, and also press the like button and share the Facebook so that we could continue to grow with our audience. Share with your friends, your family, all your associates. Globespan, a platform that's entering its 7th year. January 2026 will be 7th year with Globespan 24/7, offering a community service for all voices. The platform invites all political parties, civil and religious leaders to share their opinions and address their concern. You can contact Globespan 24/7 by calling 631-782-8694, or you could email us at support@globespan2424x7.com. Our topic tonight is an update on the Information Access Initiative that Mr. Christopher Ram is a key player and a point person in taking on such a challenge. We also would shift towards the situation with Venezuela and when the oil comes on stream, how that would have an effect on the economy. So our guest tonight, I want to be able to recognize Mr. Vincent Adams in a very special way. He is of the diaspora. He was the former senior executive at the U.S. Department of Energy and the former head of EPA. And the reason why I say I want to recognize that, because, you know, Mr. Vincent Alexander once said on this program, and many other sort of echo the same sentiment, that for Guyana to make a meaningful shift, the diaspora would need to be much more engaged. And as you guys could see, as things are unfolding vis-a-vis the relationship between the United States and Guyana, the United States agency have such a major impact across the board. I know a lot of people focus on Exxon only, but if you look at OFAC and some of the other agencies, it's a lot of, so the diaspora has a major role to play. And we have no other than the son of Guyana. He's of an independent mind. I was talking to a good friend of mine actually earlier, a few days ago, and he was expressing how admirable he is of Mr. Christopher Ram and his efforts in what he's doing. One of the big concerns that comes out of us is that when succession of people like Mr. Christopher Ram, other people to step into the shoes where they're willing to sacrifice their self-interest for the interests of the people and for the nation as a whole. So he's an attorney at law and a charter accountant. Must have been extremely brilliant in school, quite a lot that he's taken on. So the information access, Ladies and gentlemen, if you notice, in many cases, what has been happening is that if we go to look for certain type of information, it was only updated. The last update was probably 3, 4 years ago. And when you bring those facts on for discussion, the quick pushback you get, oh, that information is old. Yeah, it's all, but there's nothing else that we have accessibility to. So we must, So here we are. Mr. Christopher Ram has took on this initiative with among the other players in Guyana. So, Mr. Ram, could you bring us an update? I know you had some meetings with international committees as well. So do bring us up to date on this.
Thank you very much, and thank you, my fellow panelists and viewers. I think this is the first occasion following the September 1, 2025 elections. We all expected lots of things, whichever way it came. And one of the things we would have expected was a governance dividend. Instead, what we've got is a demonstrated aversion to openness and accountability and transparency. The president had given me a personal guarantee, assurance that he would address the concerns about the access to information, which we had been, we had picket exercises, etc., outside the Commission of Information and the Office of the President. He would do it after the elections. That was also in the PPPC's manifesto. They won with an increasing majority. And yet, at an Inter-American Commission on Human Rights hearing on the question of access to information, the Ali administration chose to snub the IACHR and refused to participate. Now, what does that say? A, about their word on their commitment, and B, their embrace of transparency and accountability. I think they failed very, very miserably, and we should see this increased representation in Parliament by the PPP as something that we have to seriously worry about. I don't want it. I know your question was limited. We're not talking, we don't have a leader of the opposition yet. But I answer your question. The government has shown it doesn't care. There's a law that it is required to follow, and it chose not to follow the law. It chose to disregard the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights, the Escarazo Agreement, and all of these things. The government just doesn't seem to care. It is now in power. It has a reinforced majority, and that's it.
Mr. Adams, given your experience in the diaspora and in the United States as well, what could Guyanese do in situations like this? As Mr. Ram pointed out, they have a majority in government. But here we are, I mean, the census is still not out. So much more other pertinent information that business people, private sector, individual Guyanese needs to have so that they could be able to function with informed decisions in what they're doing. What would be your advice to the Guyanese people in a situation like this?
Well, my advice would obviously come from the perspective of a country that obeys the rule of law. And it's obvious that this government is not. I want to applaud Chris, my very good friend Chris, on his courage to stand up as basically a one-man army in advocating and protesting to make sure that we have information that by law should be given to the people. Here it is especially in information coming out from production of the oil. And we've got to understand, and to get directly to your question first, the only thing that could hold these folks accountable in any democratic society, we call ourselves a democracy, but there's no way that this government is behaving like a democracy. In my experience, in a democratic institution where you have checks and balances, like in the United States government where I work, there are checks and balances. There are no checks and balances in the way that our government is structured. Remember, and we're seeing it even from, I don't want to get off track here, in the famous parent company guarantee to cover an oil spill. What we have here is the executive branch and and Parliament are exactly the same. The same members who were in Parliament are the same members who are in the executive branch. So they're essentially, when they get into Parliament, they're voting as part of the legislative branch. They're voting on their own proposal. So there's no checks and balances, which is exactly what they did to try to overrule Judge Kissoon's order and decision on the parent company guarantee. So I want to applaud, my good friend here on keeping up this fight. For example, and we're going to get into this. For example, information on oil, our revenue. The revenues belong on oil. When I say revenues, I mean every barrel. It's the revenues and the value belongs to the people of Guyana. And it's just like if you were having a bank account, and here's the government manipulating your bank account. You don't know how much is in it, how much is coming in. They're spending like drunken sailors, and you have no control over it. And that is why the information is so important for us to keep track of it. And they're just holding on to the information. But I would expect that it's the checks and balances that we do not have, and people should hold them accountable at the polls, but that did not happen, unfortunately, in this last election.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. And quickly, Mr. Ram, just name a few pertinent information that the country really needs so the viewers could get a clearer understanding of information that we're not getting access to. Just a few important ones.
Well, I can speak specifically on the matters that I have asked about. We've asked about this report, the Klein and Company report, which was a report commissioned by Raphael Trotman. Why is it the PPP would not want that report into the circumstances leading up to the 2016 agreement, over which we all are unhappy? And yet the government, it doesn't do anything on. I've asked about this gold scholarship. We're spending billions of dollars each year on the gold scholarship. We're not sure where the money is going to. How the money is being controlled. You have Professor Opade, a close friend of the president, and no information. We have asked what tax certificates have been issued to the oil companies to enable them to claim tax credits in the United States of America. What is so sacred that they cannot provide that information? We've asked for information, for requests. How many requests has the Office of the Commission of Information received, and how they were dealt with? All of those things are not, they just refuse. You get the impression that the government feels, look, we don't have to answer you. Some of these things don't put them in a bad light or a good light. They just, some of them basic information, so that we can get a better assessment of how they handle the country's money, not their money, but they just feel that they're answerable to no one. And if you do come up on the question of Parliament, you'll see the same kind of thing. For the first time ever, we don't have a leader of the opposition. This is since independence.
Yeah.
This is absolutely scandalous.
Thank you, Mr. Ram. Thank you. And for all our viewers' information, we did extend an invitation because this program is going to shift a lot on oil prices, effects on the Guyana economy. So given the fact that it was going more towards the economic side of Guyana, we did extend an invitation to Minister Dr. Ashni Singh. I don't think we got a response at all. So but we did want it to have a diverse conversation. Just a reminder to all of our viewers on the Wednesday program, the first and third Wednesday of every month would be myself. The second and fourth Wednesday, we still have Dr. Rose on. And usually when we get to, if ever there's, sometimes there are a fifth Wednesday, we will try to bring on Dr. Bisram. Our program starts at 7 p.m. in Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. on the Guyana side. We will have our next program December 10th And originally I had mentioned that we may not have a program on December 16th, but that has changed. We will have a program December 16th, and I will be on that program. I want to shift a little to the situation with Venezuela.
Hey,
Venezuela,
Noir, quickly,
yes, sir.
Noir. You asked the question of Chris as to what's some important things that should be released. Now, here is some two critical documents that the government, myself and Chris have been after them for. Reserves. This here is going to drive what the revenue is. This government, in terms of what we have, when I reserve determine, what the revenue comes into the country to pay off these debts that we're going to get into. The petroleum reserves has been stuck for 11 billion barrels since 2022. If you recall, from 2015 to 2022, every time there was a discovery, as soon as the well was discovered, there was a declaration and the reserve was updated. And I've been in that business. I've been a petroleum engineer, and that was my job, to make the determination what the reserve is. And you do it, as a matter of fact, you do it on the spot while you're drilling the well. Anyway, we have not gotten an updated reserve since April of 2022. And we've had 24 more discoveries since then. So why is the government hiding reserves? And I could get into some details as to why I believe they are doing it, because it's benefiting Exxon to start with, and how much money they withdraw for decommissioning. The other thing is, it's the field development plan that tells you exactly, how they're going to operate and how they're going to operate these fields. And then, of course, why isn't the government releasing the quarterly reports that Exxon submits? All of that data in terms of the debts, the interest rate, how much we're getting in terms of revenues coming to us, what is it costing us, what's our profit, all of that is in those quarterly reports. Why isn't the government releasing those quarterly reports for the public to see? We have to go and back calculate what it is. Why are they hiding it? So those are some very critical documents, especially the quarterly reports, the field development plan, and the reserve estimates that is supposed to be in those quarterly reports that we must see. It belongs to the people. That's the kind of information that is very critical for us to see.
Totally agree, and I believe Chevron tipped their hats in one of their statements to the shareholders in Wall Street, how much of a big fine, and one of the best fine in the world actually, and may have tipped their hat in indicating the type of reserve that Guyana sits on. But yeah, I think all Guyanese needs to know what are their value, what are their riches. Everybody talks about, Guyana is now becoming one of the highest per capita. But does the people really understand that? Do they really know? And thanks, to guys like yourself, Mr. Christopher Ram, and people within the government itself as well, hopefully could contribute to a conversation that the people will be informed. And when I say people, I am including everyone in the diaspora as well. They have a major role. They played a major role during the doldrum days in Guyana, and they will need to play a major role in the expansion and also of the road to prosperity in Guyana under this new economy. I shifted to you, Mr. Adams, because I know I wanted to start this oil conversation on the oil, the effects of the Venezuelan oil. I think it's a foregone conclusion. Venezuelan oil will be on the open market. And prior to Venezuela collapse, they were capable up to about 3.5 million barrels per day. This was prior to their collapsing. The largest reserve, they have more oil than the Saudi does, as far as what I know. How do you see that? Any comments in terms of, do you see the oil? Do you agree the oil will be coming on the open market very soon?
Sure, absolutely. And where the market goes, there's no question. And President Trump from the United States, his one and only interest, trust me on this, is oil, to get as much oil in the market as possible, because his objective is to drive oil price down. And this here has been, since his first administration, he is the oil guy of the world. And by the way, I worked in his administration, so I in the Department of Energy. So I know what that mantra was. So now he's in there. So he's basically after the Venezuelan oil to have some control of it. And by the way, in terms of putting things into perspective, Venezuela has over 300 billion, listen to this, over 300 billion barrels of oil reserves. It's the largest oil reserves in the whole world, more than Saudi Arabia and everybody else. Compared to us, with the 11 billion that we have, is over 30 times what we have. So that's what this is about. And I believe eventually, and Chevron, you remember when Trump came, you remember even before Trump, you remember Chevron started up, went back into Venezuela. And I believe that's the objective of Trump and his administration, is to get American companies to go back into Venezuela. The politics of it, who knows what's going to happen, whether Maduro is going to be removed, but that's going to be the end game. You're absolutely correct. I think it's the expectations of everyone that Venezuela oil will be on the market and oil will be flowing. The oil costs, and I think that's where you're going. The oil prices could potentially, go way down. As a matter of fact, I was in the industry when oil prices went from, we were producing like, we were expecting oil prices to be above $200 a barrel, believe it or not, in the late 70s, in 80s, sorry, in the 80s. And I remember I was working for British Petroleum, and we were spending, like crazy, and then the oil prices dropped about less than $20 a barrel. So this year, again, it is a possibility. And if Venezuela opens its tap to producing oil in the market, that's a possibility. And I think you're going to get into how that's going to impact us.
If we will, and we're just going to take a quick pause to bring on Professor Griffith. He wrote a very nice book, The Impact of on Climate Change. So Devin, could you just bring that on? We would like to support Professor Griffith in this book.
Oil is transforming Guyana. Oil is transforming Guyana, and the entire Caribbean is watching. But beneath the promise of prosperity lies a deeper risk, the rising threat of climate change. Oil and climate change in Guyana's wet neighborhood explores this high-stakes intersection of economics, politics, and the environment. Author Ivelaw Griffith takes you inside the region's oil ambitions and reveals how climate vulnerability could shape its future. This isn't just a policy debate. It's about coastlines vanishing, livelihoods shifting, and choices that will define generations. Packed with insight, data, and sharp analysis, this book is essential reading for anyone who cares about the Caribbean's future. Are we on a path to progress or peril? Dive into the story that affects us all, Oil and Climate Change in Guyana's Wet Neighborhood, by Ivelaw Griffith.
I did try to get Professor Griffith on this program as well. However, he's out in Trinidad and Tobago. Very gutsy for him to be out there, 7 miles off the Venezuelan coast. But we wish him well on that. Mr. Ram, you are a person of experience, knowledge. You've seen it all under the sun in Guyana. I just want to read to you from oilprice.com, some of these comments that came in. JP Morgan predicts the international crude benchmark Brent could drop into the 30s per barrel by 2027 due to the overwhelming market oversupply. Now that's JP Morgan. Goldman Sachs, on the other hand, forecasts the US benchmark. The WTI crude will average $53 per barrel in 2026 amid a 2 million barrel per day surplus, and advises investors to short oil right now. Well, we are not giving that advice here. I'm just reading, just to be clear on that. Those are two major financial institutions making these sort of prediction, and going to just ducktailing off of Mr. Adams and the Trump administration. President Trump, his sweet spot probably is going to be at $35 a barrel. Are we already in the low 50s? What do you make of these statements? And then, of course, we want to go into a discussion how it would impact this new emerging oil and gas economy in Guyana?
Well, these predictions are like self-fulfilling prophecies. And the facts, JP Morgan, Bloomberg, and those heavyweights in the financial analytical structure, they help to create reality. So I think that we have got to take this very seriously. And there are serious consequences and implications of that. What the government has done, and that 2016 agreement has done, is that it's front-end loaded in favor of the oil companies. This is why you notice they have started taking out money despite what the country's president has said. He's a liar. I can't use a less diplomatic language than that. They are actually pulling money out because they know what the situation is likely to be. We have allowed them. This is why ring fencing was such a sensible thing to do. They've chosen not to go with ring fencing. I think we can have a serious problem on the natural resource fund, on the budget, because we're becoming more and more dependent. Our budget is more and more dependent on the natural resource fund than it really ought to be. And, we didn't take a lot of, when we did the NRF for the schedule as to how much you can spend and how much you can save, we didn't take account of the relative price of oil. We just took absolute values collected into the fund, and that you could draw so much from the fund based on the takings for the year. So we have, in fact, screwed ourselves. No ring fencing, allow the oil companies to recover all these costs whilst they hold the things like the decommissioning fund. They hold the decommissioning fund. They are not in a net loss position, as Alistair Routledge has said. They are in fact benefiting. But I do believe, Noor, that there are broader implications of Venezuela, geopolitical, military, human, and so on. And I don't want to jump the gun, but on the question of prices, we are facing some serious problems. And even as we look at the half-year report that was published quite belatedly, maybe a victim of the elections, things are slowing down. The rate of growth obviously is slowing down. And we could have a couple of bad years ahead of us, and that could create serious social and other dislocations for us as a country and the economy.
Yeah, that certainly would rein on the president's ambition to basically move the economy at such a pace and take Guyana to the next level. And that is a sign of where it could be some hindrance for him, or some headwinds, as they will say. I just want to remind the viewers the type of quality of men that Globespan normally engages. They have an in-depth knowledge of how situations are, how the economy is moving. And while some of them have been subject to very crude comments, I have to tell you, men like Christopher, Mr. Adams, and so many others that's been on Globespan contribute very much informative and educational information that we all need as people. To go further, Mr. Adams, and this article it states here too, the international crude benchmark Brent could dip to the 30s per barrel, handled by 2027, as an oversupply could overwhelm the market, according to JP Morgan Post. Mr. Ram indicated that this could be when these big financial institutions make these sort of statements, Mr. Adams, they could be a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, they have deep mind, deep access to information, and they spend millions of dollars in researching information before they could even come out with statements like this. What's your take on this, Mr. Adams, given your experience in the oil industry and being a part of the Trump administration? What's your take on this, where the oil price is heading?
Oh, absolutely, without question. There are several forces, headwinds. First of all, don't underestimate that Ukraine war. Remember, Russia is under the squeeze. Right now, Russia is not exporting a whole lot of oil.